I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought and died just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another
Hello!
Hey!
And welcome to Season 32, Episode 22 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Angie.
I'm Jake.
The new guy beat you, Ingy. Come on.
I wasn't sure if he was going to go or I was
We
gonna go.
practiced while
did?
you were not in the room, actually.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, in today's episode, Toby asks about running nonlinear games. Fuzzy Boff from the Discord asks about a bait and switches with games with their players, and Mist shares a success story. If you'd like to contribute a question or story to the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone who has responded when the beacons were lit for emails. Keep sending them.
Yay.
Yay. All right, announcements. Game Days is coming up on November 4th. Game Days is our totally free Discord day where a bunch of people run a bunch of different games and you can come and play, and it's a bunch of fun. I think there's 3 or 4 games right now that you can go and just like RSVP for. I'm going to see if I can run something. So November 4th, and kind of like around that day, since we have people in a lot of different time zones around the world. So some of them end up on Friday and some of them end up on Sunday, but you know, just average. Some exciting news about our Unsung Tales actual play. Some of you may or may not be caring, but we've been trying something new and submitting it to some web fests and stuff, and it's actually done okay.
Ooh.
So it's very exciting. Jay, who is one of the players who played Sausage Brandy Bottom,
That's a name.
He's great. The best Hobbit name. So good. Won Best Actual Play Performer at the New Jersey Web Fest for it. We were nominated for a bunch of different stuff. And we actually just won Best Actual Play Video at the Sydney Web Fest. And we were nominated. We're up in the finals for the Best Actual Play Video at the Rio Web Fest. So it's successful, this experiment. So wild.
Huzzah!
Ta-da! We kind of did it just like on a lark because my friend Aaron, who I've met, who's a part of Queen's Court Games, was like, "You should do this.
Just do it.
Just do it." I was like, "Okay, cool. This will be a waste of a couple bucks. It's fine." And then we started winning. I was like, "Oh, well, thank you. This is good. Okay, cool." So, yeah.
Remind me when we're done to get cool accolades and stuff from you, because I'm about to launch my thing, and at the end of it, I'm going to showcase my friend's stuff, and I want to do Happy Jacks as my first one. So
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a fun little thing, and I'm proud of that since that was my AP. So, okay, October Indie Designer of the Month. We're continuing with Monroe Wells Soto, he, they, and best itch.io thing ever. monroerow.itch.io is their store, and you can find them at Eldritch Crow on Twitter. This week we're talking about Rooted Together, which is a game about finding your community. So you play with a group of friends. It's a journaling game that utilizes a D6, where you are a mushroom folk. Yeah, I'm looking at all of you out there. Trying to build a community. It's rules light and open to expand into whatever sort of play style you find best. And it's usually $6, but right now it's on sale for $3, and it's just going great with like the spooky Halloween-y theme. So, Monroe, sorry, I'm pulling all your spooky games, and they're great. There's so many good ones. So, and again, that's monroerow.itch.io, which makes me smile every single time I say it. All right. So yeah, Jake, you're new. Hi, who are you and what makes you famous?
I know famous people. That's what makes me famous.
Same.
Not that I am famous. But yeah, so my name's Jake. I run a channel called Alt Haven, formerly known as Q Times. I am the co-founder and co-owner of the channel. I stream a bunch. I also create educational content for YouTube, primarily stuff teaching people how to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and like Pathfinder news that's coming out. I do that. But definitely slowed down because children apparently take up a lot of time, which is like mind-boggling, right? You know,
Sweet summer child.
he's 2 weeks old,
2
and I'm
weeks
already
old.
using him as an excuse
Yep.
for why I don't do projects that have been a month old. But yeah, that's my shit. Oh, and I am an avid Video Ninja forcer of people that are using anything else like Google Meets or Skype for their TTRPGs because
No,
so much.
it's so
I
bad.
don't know what you're talking about.
do you do any
You just
remote?
said a bunch of words that.
No, I get. Do you do any remote TTRPG shows?
Yeah. Well, not shows.
Or like,
yet.
okay.
Yeah, I do. I have a Wednesday game that's been going 3.5 years. Started during the pandemic as a one-shot and is just some of the best role-playing I've ever had. So
Nice. So a lot of times people that are doing remote shows, what they'll do is they'll use Google Meets and they'll use OBS and they'll just like put Google Meets up on a window and then screen capture each individual person and put them on their overlay.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if someone logs out,
It goes,
we've
I've done that.
we've all seen that, right? Where
Yeah.
you see all of a sudden like two people, one person's in two different screens or whatever. Video Ninja is a open source, free, no ads, no downloads, no data collection, like completely open source website that you can go to that like I promote the hell out of. Don't get paid to. I just love it that much, and I want people like my opinion about like TTRPG like live streams is that like if more people make like higher quality, it just raises everyone's like need to make a higher quality thing, and it also makes it more of a legitimate like medium like for that kind of entertainment. But it's really hard when you like go on to like the tabletop section of Twitch and see like just
Us.
garbage. No, you guys are trust me. When you go there and you just see garbage like overlays and you just see garbage things. In fact, when we met for the first time, we met at Big Bad Con. I gave a presentation on how to make your virtual tabletop show suck less.
Yes. Great title. Amazing title. And Dom, who's a good friend of ours, who used to run Saving Throw Show,
Yes.
is a big proponent of it as well.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
Dom is actually the reason why Q Times existed in the first place.
Oh, yeah?
So, a friend of mine they were trying to create a channel for themselves, but they didn't have the space. They didn't have like the equipment or the technical background, but they got a gig to stream something for a place, and they literally he came to me and says, hey, can you stream a show? And I was like, yeah, I can make that happen. I got enough tools and stuff like that. And he goes, great. We're going to start streaming Friday. And it was like Monday. And I was like,
Oh no!
fuck. Right. And so we started that happen. But I actually got to go to Saving Throw show when they were local.
Yeah.
And I went there and Dom actually like sat down with me after the show and was like, yeah, this is this piece and this is this piece, and like went through the entire system. So like I give a lot of the ability to have made that quick turnaround
Yeah.
On the fact that Dom was so kind to just be like, yeah, here, let me show you all the cool shit that we have. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad I had no idea what you're talking about because now I'm sold.
Funny, Dom is also why we stream.
Oh, really?
Because it was like 2011. We were just podcasts. We were doing actual plays, but just in podcast form. And I got invited to go like guest spot on one of their shows that Jameson was GMing. It was like their first campaign. It was D&D. We all know how good I am at D&D. So I was like, oh yeah, I have to learn how to play this again because I don't think I'd ever played 5e. I think they'd switched to 5e. I only played 4e at that point because we don't really play D&D very often, Jake. So
I only play D&D when I am asked to do a charity stream on someone else's channel.
yeah. So I'm like frantically trying to remember how to play D&D that day. And they're like, oh, we need a caster. I'm like, okay, no problem. But anyway, I went and it was like my first experience in like a streaming studio. It was like over the hill then. It wasn't here in North Hollywood. It was over off of Sunset. It was like a rental space. And I like left. I'm like, Stu, we can do this. We have a garage. We can totally do this. Wow, was that a learning experience?
I
Dom
do
was also
remember him
yeah.
saying nobody's ever going to want to watch actual plays.
Well, when Matt Mercer came into our studio and was like, Yeah, I have this idea for like a show where we play D&D and people watch and we all fucking laughed at him.
Yeah. He doesn't talk to us anymore.
I mean, I just wish that we would had like done it for. It's fine. Oh well, we wouldn't have. They still would be. We wouldn't be millionaires. It's fine. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, Dom, friend of the show, amazing person, great person. And still, even though that he's not running anything right now for streaming, is like incredibly helpful on Discord with any question you have technical about anything. He's still like a professional in this space as far as like making content and like a film maker and stuff like that. So it's still like, hey Dom, what do you recommend for this? Oh, this is what it.
Yeah.
This is a love fest.
Yeah.
Dom love fest. Sounds like Dom deserves it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we also know a bunch of great people like Terry and Riley all came from Saving Throw. That's how I met them, and like a bunch of people. That's where Nick came from. So we have a very big like family. Like it's a little incestuous.
It's a lot incestuous.
Yeah, very.
Like especially in LA because everyone's desperate to do things. So whenever there's like, oh, so and so has a studio, everyone's like flocks to like want to work with each other because it's like, oh, you have a studio, like what can I be on? What can I do? Because I mean, you're in LA for a reason, which is. I don't know.
That's where my house is.
Yeah. It's where I was born, so I didn't really have a choice past that.
And now your kid.
And now my kid is going to be forced to play TTRPGs, even now as a child.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've already
Get like the big dice though, because the little ones are choking hazards.
Well, I actually
Gotta start him early.
Yeah.
My cousin started me when I was 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I actually am sewing large foam dice, so they're bigger than he is. So those will be his first set, and he will use them until 10.
Yeah.
Until they fall apart.
Yeah, exactly.
James V, who's our mod for this show, hi James, sent my little one like this awesome big foam LARP dice. So she has like a full set of dice that I have to like quietly steal when I go run my booth at cons because people get to roll dice to like win things. And so it's always like, look over there, Mama's leaving. Okay, bye. She gets very annoyed. Mama, those are my dice. No, I want the 21. Okay.
You're like, who paid for them?
Yeah. She's like, some stranger that I don't know. Well, yes, accurate, but still.
Yeah, no, the plan is to get the child quickly into TTRPGs because, I mean, I'm not going to teach him math. And this is the easiest way.
That's my job.
Yeah, there you go. See, you can teach him math. I'm going to teach him how to add 1 plus whatever number is on that D20.
That's right.
Yep.
That's why during the Satanic Panic, my mom, other parents would be like, Your kids play Dungeons and Dragons? Aren't you afraid that they'll go to hell? And she was like, no, there's nothing demonic about it. It's math problem solving. Like, that's it. Like, and my dad was just like, he finally likes math. This is great.
It's funny you mentioned Satanic Panic because I remember very vividly growing up and being at a thrift store. And on the shelf of the thrift store, there was a Dungeons and Dragons book. But it was like in a box that had like little rubber miniatures about that big that were just like blue and a red guy and a yellow guy. And I was like, oh my God, Mom, I want this. This is so cool. This looks really interesting. And my mom picks it up and she's like, no, you can't have that. And like throws it back on the shelf. And it was a very vivid memory for like my entire life. And I did not understand it. And then I got into D&D. Like my first time actually playing TTRPGs was post-college. Like I hadn't played like nothing. I was like post-college. A friend of mine was like, hey, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Whatever. Like I have no interest. They're like, oh, well, you should like come by and hang out. And I was like, eh. And then he's like spent the entire day at work literally just talking about it and like, oh, I'm a sorcerer and I do all these really cool things. And we have a fighter and we have a druid. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, we really need a rogue. And I was like, okay, well.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. And he goes, here, do me a favor. He's like, hey, just come and hang out with us. Just come and hang out. Watch us play for one session. And I was like, oh, okay. He goes, but if you were to play, like, what would you play? And it's like, well, you said you need a rogue, so like, I guess I'd play a rogue. Like, they sound fun, like sneaky, stabby, stab. And they're like, oh, cool. And he's just like writing, like, as I'm driving to his house with like him sitting in the passenger seat. And he goes, cool, here's your character sheet. And I was like, my what? Like, you're playing. And I was like, oh. And then
the old bait and switch.
yeah, and then I am here.
Yeah. My ex-girlfriend, we would go play at her house, and she would be sitting on the couch like you nerds do your thing. I'm sitting here with the kids and all that stuff, and we're all playing, and then she started like kind of moving a little closer, and then she's like, "Well, I guess maybe I'd play a character like this as long as I didn't have to care about anything." We're like, "Yeah, sure, come on, you don't have to care about shit." And and then you get them their first crit.
Yeah. And then they care.
Yeah, and then they care.
You know what I found? To get people into it that are like, oh, I'm going to play a session is before we go and play, what we do is we go to a game shop and I buy them their first set of dice. I go, look,
I love doing
look, what I was like, if you're, this is your character, like what dice do you see? And the pretty math dice are just out there. And they're just like, oh, well, that's really, that one's really cool. And I'm like, oh, is that what your character? Yeah, they're like a fire sorcerer. So that makes sense. And then it's like, yes. And then they get it. And then they're like, well, I've got this set of dice now. Like, what am I going to use it for other than playing?
Next thing you know, they've got a book and like 3 more sets of dice. And you're like, "Mwahaha." Then they start quoting lore that you wrote.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. That's when it's really great. When they start quoting things that you wrote, you're like, yeah.
You're like, I wrote that? I told you that?
I started writing the stuff on my website, hjrpg.com, 25 years ago. And for years, nobody read it when they played. I never expected really anybody to read it. I wrote it kind of just for funsies for me. And then one day somebody starts quoting my website and I'm like, what is happening? Those words are familiar.
Yeah. I'm with Jake. Like, it's like totally my GMing moment. I'm like, yeah. And they start saying, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah, I know. That's why it sounds. Yeah, I'm glad you remember that important fact that I very, very much remember before you just said it aloud and then told me I said it. Yes. Yeah. I'm cool.
I feel like I am a terrible lore GM because I will have, like, I have a general idea. I'm like, this is where they're starting and this is where I want them to finish. Between point A and point Z, I'll make Z happen, right? The dragon's on in the door on the left and they go through the door on the right, and guess what? The dragon is on the door on the right. Like, that's my GMing style. Like, I know where they want to be, but like, they'll like get really interested in certain things and I'm like, cool, now I got to come up with lore for this. And then I'll like come up with lore for like on the spot and kind of like ad lib and kind of go with it. And then like 2 or 3 sessions would be like, oh yeah, Goblin the Boblo said this. And I was like, shit, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. And this is how it works,
Yeah.
Or I also am bad where I will just let them like sit there and talk amongst themselves for like 10 minutes and be like, yeah, that's the new plan.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know like that. Yeah, this like
GM 101 right
yeah. They're like, wow, you came up with a fucked up backstory. That is what happened just now. Yeah. Ooh, that's a really good twist.
Wow, the really straightforward thing I came up with is stupid.
But yeah, no, I want to get into lore, especially because so I play mostly Pathfinder 2nd Edition, right? And Pathfinder has a lot of really interesting lore. Yeah. But the problem is I'm not I'm going to sit down and read a book kind of lore person. Like, I do audiobooks. Like, I'm horribly dyslexic. And so sitting down to read lore just sounds just like death to me, right? And so
that's why I write it.
Yeah. so it's it's interesting to I don't make up the lore until it's while we're playing, but I love some of the lore within systems that exist, and I'm like, man, I really wish I had the attention to be able to do that, to sit there and read. I'm because it's with Pathfinder, elves are aliens.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's interesting. I want to know more about that. And then I'm like, I'm not going
Not
to.
enough to read a book, but I would like to know more. Is there a YouTube video, perhaps?
Well, and
There you
that's what I like have talked to people about. I'm like, if I had motivation to read lore, because like most of my motivation is to create a piece of content, and so if I have the motivation to create lore, I will sit there and read the lore, but because then I have a goal and an objective. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
I'm gonna pull this pieces of information and get this lore out of here, or get this piece of information because I think that alien elves are a very weird and interesting thing.
Yeah.
I think other people should know about that, you know? But like past having like a dedicated interest in something, I'm just like, there's places on a map. Like I could not tell you anything about D&D lore, even though I have played hundreds of hours of Baldur's Gate, both 1, 2, and 3. I could not tell you anything about the lore.
I
enjoy
playing
it.
Baldur's Gate 3. I've been like, this sounds like lore. This sounds like things that people who played the other games should know. I've played at least one of the other games.
It was not until Baldur's Gate 3 came out that I realized that the other Baldur's Gate games I'd played were about D&D. I was suddenly was like, what? All this connects it with the, okay.
I'm very curious, what was your first tabletop RPG game that you played?
I think it was in like junior high. I think it was some iteration of D&D. We didn't play it for very long. We got bored and started playing video games in like 45 minutes in. So my first real playing was 4th edition when Stu got a group of us from the Renaissance Fair together with like 8 of
12
us.
people or
Yeah, it was
something?
so many. It grew so
too many
fast.
people. Too many people.
Yeah, well, it was one of those things where he
Especially
put,
for 4E.
Oh, so long, like 8-hour combat. So we're like, that
Nope.
was a thing. No, so bad. But like, it was one of those things where he invited a bunch of people and thinking a bunch of them would be like, no. And nobody said no. So, I mean, we're here now.
And I
so
was
that
like,
was,
why didn't I get an invite?
yeah.
And he's like, you're in San Diego, so you know, I had,
Yeah,
to cut off.
yeah,
I had to have the cutoff at some
somewhere.
point. I'm no
Yeah.
longer in San Diego.
Yeah. But so that was the first one that I really dug in. That was the first one I like GM'd too. I eventually DM'd a couple sessions of one for that. Didn't do that again for a while. And haven't. I every like 2 or 3 years I'm like, oh, D&D, yeah, and I play in D&D. I haven't run D&D since then, and that was a long time ago.
I'll say I'm more interested in playing 3.5 or 4 than I am at all interested in playing 5.
Yeah.
Like,
I have no interest in 3, 3, 5, 4, 2, 1, AD&D basic box set.
Yeah.
I never really liked D&D growing up. 5th edition, I'm like, oh, they've really streamlined it. So I don't one of these games that I played, the old Shit Zombies crew, Tim, who was our DM, like swapped us from this basically 1st edition analog that like the whole entire idea of the game was we're gonna get drunk and run dungeons and be stupid, and I was like it was fun, and then he's like, no, I don't think you're having fun, so we're gonna switch over to, and I think it was Pathfinder, but I had like plus 17. I'm like 1st or 2nd level, like why? This is ridiculous. I don't like all of these modifiers.
that's 3.5 in Pathfinder 1st
Yeah.
edition. The high, well, I mean, Pathfinder 2nd edition has high modifiers as well. But I don't know. I feel 4th is probably, to me, 4th is more streamlined than 5th.
Yeah.
Because 4 was like, you have 4 abilities, and that's it.
Yeah.
You've got your anytime ability, your encounter ability, your daily ability, and then like a heal.
Yeah.
Like no matter what class you are, those are the 4 things that you could do, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so like I feel 4 it was extremely streamlined, and that's what killed it because
But it didn't play like D&D.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, because they went from 3.5, which was like Crunchzilla, right? Like not GURPS or anything like that, but it was very, very crunchy, and there was a lot of like paths that you could go and prestige classes, and like you had to build characters very hyper specific ways, and there were so many, the number of books were so deep that and then you go from that to you have 4 abilities and you can only change them once per day, and you're just like, oh, and everyone has a heal. This feels wrong.
Yeah, it feels dirty.
Yeah, this feels weird. And I will say 4th edition is a good, oh god, don't let my Discord hear this. 4th edition is a good game. It is not a good Dungeons and Dragons game.
Right.
That's yeah.
I absolutely, and I still really love it. I think combats can get a little long. I think they needed to playtest that a little bit more. But I actually credit 4th edition, and I've like proselytized about this previously. Like the popularity of D&D now with 4th edition, because so many people entered the hobby like I did who were MMO players, and it was like boom, immediately you stepped in from World of Warcraft or whatever else you played. Like we were in a raiding guild at the time, all of us. And so like sat down and played. I was like, oh, I fucking know this. Like immediately. And
That's
it was
one
like
of the things I really liked about that was the different roles.
yeah.
But other than that, I didn't play it.
Right.
So
my wife loved Neverwinter Nights, which was 4th edition MMO.
Yeah.
Which like she loved the hell out of that game.
Yeah.
And she's the kind of player though where she's very much I appreciate her as one of my players. She does not give a fuck about the lore. She goes, I want to roll dice and I want to kill things. And I was like, done.
My husband's the absolute opposite. He does not want to kill things. He wants to have dramatic moments and dramatic scenes and like make lore. He wants to make the lore, and I'm like, yeah, okay. That's why our kid's named after a tree from the Silmarillion. I get it. Okay. But yeah, no, I there's so much I loved about 4th edition, and I honestly think that's one of the things that made me try it and stick with it, because it felt so comfortable right away, even though I was nervous about not knowing all the rules with these people who I thought were like really knowledgeable. But Stork and Stu and all that. But then like sitting down, I was like, oh, okay. And I like immediately was able to sit down that very first session and function like very well in combat with a couple of questions, because it's fucking raid. Like it was like, wow. It was like what I did like when I forget what the days were, but it was like Wednesdays and Thursday. Yeah.
Thursdays,
2 or 3 nights a week, like on a schedule. Like I was there fucking raiding, and then I can just add my 4th edition night to that. And it was like, this fits everything I understand. And I think that a lot of people joined in at that time who had a similar experience, who instead of going from tabletop to video games were like me, where they were of an age where they went from video games to tabletop.
Sure.
And that made that transition pretty seamless for a lot of us. And then we stuck with it.
Well, I mean, from my understanding, and this could be drastically wrong, so please tweet me about how wrong I am. No, I'm just kidding. My understanding is Wizards of the Coast actually has made more money from Baldur's Gate 3 than they did from both the Dungeons and Dragons movie and 5th edition. Like, and because the drastic difference of like the amount of like the audience that play video games is so much larger than the audience that play TTRPGs. And having that introduction of like, here's a very good and well-made game, because let's be honest, D&D makes games a lot. None of them are good. But Baldur's Gate was a phenomenal game, and they're seeing we're hopefully the right message, which is, hey, if we actually spend time and effort and make a good game, we're gonna grow our audience.
Yeah.
And we'll see that audience growth within, TTRPG, especially since, we're seeing them in Stranger Things and Critical Role success and stuff like that. It's like it's growing. It's also becoming very saturated, which is another for actual plays, which I find is a very interesting. Hence the reason I want everyone to do better than what they're doing.
Do better.
What's your first game?
Dungeons and Dragons, man.
The first one?
1978. Like sitting in my cousin's house. We're over there and he goes, hey, let me show you this book. We're going to run through. I think he ran me through a little dungeon. We were like, it was me and my brother. My sister was there too, but she was too young to like even fathom what was going on. And like, it's like showing me the monster manual and I'm hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
And then he has me like run through and roll some dice, and like I was a halfling thief, I remember, because I remember him going like, they're small like you and they have hair on their feet. Are you gonna have hair on your feet when you grow up? Spoiler, yes. Not like Hobbit amount, but
Thank you
you
for
know,
clarifying.
a normal amount.
Yeah.
And
You can find that out on feetfinder.com.
there are feet.
There are people who, yes.
And like I killed some goblins or something, and I just remember, like, I kind of remember the room. In fact, I visited there a couple of years ago. Hadn't been back since, and like visited there a couple of years ago, and I'm like, this is the room. This is the room where you introduced me to D&D, and he looked so embarrassed and like ashamed.
Oh
And you should say you should.
no!
Like, oh no, I'm responsible for you. That hell game. I don't know.
Aw.
Yeah. So, but
Well, I'm grateful he did. We get to play
me
together.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was DMing by the time I was 10.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know the rules, but that didn't matter.
No.
Because
That
none
doesn't-
of my players knew or cared. They'd be like, roll, and it was like, that's a 13. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. I mean, I still do that to this
Oh,
day.
100%. 100%. DC's made up on the spot.
Yeah.
Do I want them to
Isn't that
succeed?
how that works anyway?
Yes.
You just make up a DC on the spot.
Look, there are some soft rules that I have. Combat should only be 3 rounds. Combat should be 3 rounds.
4 rounds.
Yeah, 4 rounds if you want it to. If it's not feeling heavy, like if it feels like it's going quickly with your group, 4 makes sense. I've even pushed it to 5 if it's going pretty quickly. But if there's a lot of like, strategy or moving around, or if there's a lot of enemies, past 3 rounds, it just bogs the whole.
You
entire
just watch everybody's energy die in
Yeah.
round 4.
Yeah, so like I stopped caring about monster health. I keep monster damage because I want the danger to still feel there, but I want them to realize like I might amp up the damage to make it so that within 3 rounds it feels dangerous, right? But that, and if I want them to know, I don't care what they roll. It's just a mechanism to allow them to get a piece of information. And if they roll terribly, then it's just okay. Well, who else wants to roll?
I often just say like, no, you don't need to roll. I'll even say that after the roll. If
Yeah.
the roll's really bad, I'm like, wait, I don't know why I made you roll. You're a cleric. You would know religion stuff.
Yeah.
Basic religion stuff. And that's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I love like the PBTA. Like you don't actually roll unless it's gonna like matter or change something in the story. It's like, eh.
A system that I love is the Forged in the Dark system.
Oh yeah.
I love Scum and Villainy. Have you ever played Scum and Villainy?
No.
So it's the not Star Wars, Firefly like system. And the way that the system works is instead of like one, you only roll if there's danger, right? You only roll if there's danger. It's powered off of, it's kind of similar to Powered by the Apocalypse,
Yeah.
where you've got so many dots in an ability and that's how many dice you roll, right? But depending on what you roll, it's like a failure, a success with consequences, a success, and then like a critical success is when you roll.
Oh, is that like the
That's what
Star
they-
Wars game?
No, are you talking about the
With the weird dice?
No, that
No.
no.
That's Fantasy Flight.
Yeah,
No,
that game you can only play with an app, or at least I can only play with an app because I don't know what any of
Somebody
the
contacted me that they wanted me to run a streaming game
my
with
God.
that thing, and I watched a video on it, and my eyes crossed, and my
I-
brain melted out of my ears, and I was like, no, thank you.
no.
I have so many of those dice. I actually really like.
no, the dice are great,
I
but
think it's a cool idea.
yeah, and I've heard nothing but
Yeah.
like amazing things about the dice system because it's like you can succeed in that system with how you roll your dice, but then also have consequences, or you can fail but
Yeah.
like succeed in other
It
aspects.
sounds like it'd be so much work for me.
Yeah, it is very much it's very much like not lore. I don't want to say lore. It's very much like
It was very much,
Storyteller.
yeah, it's very my jam. Like I loved seeing like I don't love the Star Wars version so much. I've talked a lot about how I did really like their L5R version. With it, similar thing. The dice were a little bit different, a little more simplified, but the same basic idea with different symbols meaning different things. And I thought it tied in really well. And just me personally, I was able to look at dice and be like, this is what this means. Like, I don't know. It's like reading fucking tea leaves. I guess some
Right.
people
Yeah.
are better at it than others, but like, I loved it. But also, I hated all the tables in the Star Wars version. But yeah.
I will say there is an app that is very helpful where you just like you
Yeah.
click purple. Okay, I got 2 purples, 2 blacks, a white, and a yellow.
Yeah.
And you just hit it and you go, I got a success.
Yeah.
Like and the GM goes, great. I will tell you what that means,
Yeah.
right? But no, the Scum and Villainy system is a little bit different. And the reason I like that system so much is it is kind of rules light, but it's also as a GM I have to twist how my brain works. Instead of going, do you attack? What you do is you say, okay, his Vorpal sword comes out and slashes towards your stomach. Moments before the blade hits you, you imagine the blade cutting open your stomach and you being horribly injured. how would you like to react? Would you like to defend or would you like to try something different? And so you describe what's going to happen if they fail. And then they go, okay, well, I want to defend, AKA I want to take less of that damage. Or they can be like, oh, well, I want to swing my sword and cut their hand off, right? And you go, okay.
Parry?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is like...
Seems logical.
Well, the defense roll would be like a parry, right? You'd say, I want to defend. So you would parry that hit, which you have a higher chance of not being hit. But if you decide to risk it for the biscuit, right? You decide you want to cut the arm off. If you succeed, you cut the arm off and you take no damage. Versus if you succeed in the defense, you're just taking less damage.
Right.
Right. And so I love that aspect of that system. Also, the inventory system is great, where you're just like, I'm gonna go out with a light load, and it's got like 3 dots that are or 3 lines that are empty, and you don't have to choose what you pull or like what you're bringing with you until you need it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so you're just like, okay, I have 3 items that I'm bringing, and then you're going and you're like, wow, I really need that lockpicking kit. Guess what? I brought my lockpicking kit, and you fill it in when you do that.
I have a token that I'll give to my players at our in-person game because it's kind of, kind of loosey-goosey anyway. And since we get together once a month and it's them telling me what adventure they want to do, and it's like, okay, well, we need to get to the adventure fast. And because this is not like an ongoing campaign where we can just dick around in town, I give them a little token that says, it's a good thing when I was in town, I remembered to ...
Yeah.
And, remembered to talk to an old man about that lore. Remembered to get a grappling hook. Remembered to buy that healing potion. And you can just kind of, go back. I think Blades in the Dark does something similar.
Yeah, that's what it's designed to do, because Blades in the Dark and Forged in the Dark games in general, things that are built off of that are all kind of...
Yeah. Forged in the Dark is the system, and Blades in the Dark is one of the games based off of the system.
Like Apocalypse World.
See, that all makes sense.
And then Powered by the Apocalypse of people who use that same engine.
Yeah.
So, and it's all kind of one tree. It's like Powered by the Apocalypse, and then it branched off into the Forged in the Dark systems, which are more crunchy, and then the Belonging Outside Belonging games, which are less crunchy. So it's all kind of one family of games that generally have moves of some type. That's like the thing that kind of like works together. Most of them have some type of playbook, and then the degrees of success. So like the results. I don't remember I haven't played a ton of Forged in the Dark. It's not my bag, baby. As we like to say, it's a little bit like PBTA with a hat. It's amazing if you want to do like a heist game, like amazing for that. But in a lot of other things, there's so many amazing aspects to it that I really love mechanically, and it just starts to feel like too many mechanics, and it's like I wished, and a lot of people run it like they kind of like leave out certain things.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's like so many options. It kind of feels like the Cortex games where it's like they wanted you to do that, which also feels weird to me. Like Cortex, like the Cortex Prime games, like it's like, here's all the options of mechanics you can use. You pick the ones that work for you. Kind of like there's like different options, and it's a little bit like, okay, but I came to the, like I don't, it's not pizza toppings. Like I want, just give me my game. Like,
see, you and I are opposite. Because, so like Pathfinder Second Edition
I'm with you.
Pathfinder Second Edition is very much like that. It's a 600-page book that has a metric fuck ton of rules, right?
Yeah.
And the way I play it, and the reason I like people are like, why do you like Pathfinder? D&D so much easier, right? And the reason what I tell them is like, when I play Pathfinder Second Edition, I play it the same way I play D&D, where we are playing a game. They're the base rules of the system, and we play that. And then if a player is interested in something, like I have a player that's really, really interested in wrestling, right? And so now I then go, okay, great. We're going to bring the grappling rules into the system, and we're going to look at them. Versus a system that doesn't necessarily have grappling rules in it, I have to make them up, right? And they might work for a session or two, and then inevitably the player is going to figure out how to completely manipulate them in a way that's going to ruin the game for everyone. And so the reason I like having the pizza toppings is, today I want cheese, right? And cheese pizza is totally fine. But when I have a player that wants pepperoni, I have the option to put pepperoni versus having to go into my fridge and figure out how to make pepperoni, right?
Okay.
And that's what I really like about it. And that's why because everyone's like, oh, Pathfinder 2nd edition is just so crunchy and there's too many rules. Like, you don't need to pay attention to 99% of the rules unless you're interested in it. Like, there's a system in Pathfinder about squeezing.
Yeah.
There's a squeeze mechanic, not squeezing like you're hugging someone, as in you're squeezing between like a wall.
Like a lemon?
No. Like you're trying.
Juicing
Yeah. You are the
so
lemon.
crazy.
You're the lemon, and the wall is the juicer. But yeah, and I'm like, look, I have no interest. I have zero interest in like the squeeze mechanic, right? But there are players that I have had that are like, no, I want to see, like, I want to go down that feet tree and like be able to squeeze into like a 2-inch pipe. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you. And there is a system that I can look at to use that if I have players that are interested in that. And I feel like it opens up freedom for the player to choose what things that they're interested in, and having rules that exist that have been tested by the manufacturer of this isn't going to break the game, right? Versus me going, okay, all right, you want to squeeze into a 2-inch pipe. All right. Okay. All right. So
I have a system for that. It's called no.
Yeah. I mean, which is fine. No is a legitimate answer that GMs should feel comfortable doing, right? But that being said, like, as someone that wants to be a wrestler and wants to play it, like
that on the other hand.
Yeah.
See, that's when I would just be like, oh, okay, so we're going to play Worldwide Wrestling, which is a PBTA game.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because there's a hack for that somewhere.
Yeah. If you play 5e, look at the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide. There are a bunch of optional rules and really cool stuff back there. Like, for everybody always wants to jump on a monster that's bigger than them, there's rules for that.
Yeah.
And we use them all the time, and it's awesome! So,
Have any of you played? I know I'm getting us way off.
That's fine. We have emails. We'll get to them eventually.
get there.
Nobody
We're
has a
having good
bedtime,
time.
right?
No.
Yeah, I'm fucking miserable. No, have any of you played? Okay, I know when I go back to Dungeons, right? Have any of you played the alternative initiative option for Dungeons and Dragons, where depending on what actions you want to do, depend on what dice you roll, and you roll at the beginning of each turn?
I have heard of that,
I
but
feel like I played that one time. I've played a couple different things, but like I thought that was like honestly homebrewed. I didn't realize that was like an actual thing.
So Crawford actually was the one that came up with it and like introduced it. It's very interesting. It's very cool. Not great for stream. It's garbage for stream. Home games, it's very cool because like everyone's like strategizing between, and I feel like a home game, it's really good because everyone's more cohesive in that. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to go for the door. So that's like, that means I'm going to move. So that's a D6 and I'm going to interact with the door. So that's a D4. So I'm going to roll a D6 and a D4 for my initiative. What are you going to do? Oh, you're going to cast a spell. Okay. That's a D8. And you're not going to move. Okay. And you're going to move and attack. So that's a D6 and a D10 or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but you roll initiative each round and the lowest number goes first all the way to the end.
Oh, okay. So that's just like Wild Talents, or very similar to Wild Talents. This is my favorite combat system of any game ever, like to this day. Wild Talents is the one roll engine. It's this like little known like game. Basically, everyone declares what they're going to do in sense, or like if you have lower sense, you have to say what you're doing first. And then everyone goes around and says what they're doing, because then the people who have the most like sense, which is like kind of your know what's going to happen, get to hear what everyone else says.
Yeah.
So they have more planning time. And then everyone rolls at the same time. And then the results on the die determine what actions hit first. And I love the fucking chaos of it. It's so good. And it goes really fast.
yeah, it's fun and
Wild.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's Wild Talents, yeah.
Yeah, I find it very interesting, but yeah, it's terrible for stream. Do not, I mean, go for it if you want to, but it's like trying to have your audience pay attention. Like, your audience doesn't want to watch you do math, right? Like, that's why a lot of D&D is more successful, I feel, is because there's a lot less math in it. It's like, I got to roll a D20 and add a max of 5 to it, right? And that's your turn, right? Versus, other systems where there's like, it's more like with Powered by the Apocalypse, it's low numbers, but it's very like soft in like what they mean, and so like the GM has to like come up with meanings every single roll versus like in D&D you roll a dice and you go, okay, I hit because this is the number and this is how much damage I do, versus in like Powered by Apocalypse it's like, okay, you succeed, which means that this thing happens and you have to like describe the action of what happened. I love Powered by the Apocalypse. Have you seen the Candle whatever that Critical Role just is like releasing?
A little.
It is definitely Powered by the Apocalypse system. I was supposed to be on a stream playing it. And then my kid decided to be a dick.
Get born.
And be born. What a jerk.
Already screwing everything up.
No joke. I was joking about this because when my kid was getting like scanned, we had to go to the doctor like 3 or 4 times because they could not get a scan of him well enough because he kept moving so much. They're like, we can't count his fingers, we can't count his toes. We think he's got 2 eyes because he just was moving constantly so much. And I was like,
Oh, he's like that disco baby gif.
I'm literally like, this kid's not even born and he's already a pain in my ass.
Oh man, was that like the 3D scan?
No, it was just
regular
It
ones?
was just an ultrasound.
Yeah,
it was just an ultrasound that they were trying to like make sure his kidney was fine, make sure his heart was fine, and it was like I had to go into a special heart baby ultrasound specialist because they couldn't scan his heart, and I'm just like,
that's very stressful.
But yes, Kendall Obscura.
Candela Obscura.
Yeah. So it's very much Powered by the
I
Apocalypse.
gotta run to that.
Yeah. It's very much Powered by the Apocalypse like system.
Yeah.
Where it's like, number of points that you have. That's how many D6 you roll.
Yeah, and that's not surprising because Spencer has been designing Powered by the Apocalypse stuff for a while. Spencer Stark, and is a big fan of the Powered by the Apocalypse family of games. And
Spencer's a very nice person. Have you ever met Spencer?
oh yeah,
Yeah, Spencer's so
Spencer
great.
well, yeah.
I got to meet Spencer at Gen Con before COVID. And Spencer and Abria and myself.
I'm sorry. Now, who's Abria?
She's a real unknown streamer. She like no one knows who she is. No. But we stayed up until like 4 a.m. playing a game that Spencer had made. Yeah. And that was like the year that
is that the Youngblades?
No, it never came out.
Yeah.
It never came out.
No, that one didn't come out either. That's one of the ones he was.
It was like
testing.
Ember something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. I cannot remember the name.
Okay.
I'm not going to remember something from 4 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, it played until like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. playing a game at Gen Con with Spencer, and he's a very, very good guy. He was at Gen Con, or not Gen Con, Big Bad Con.
Yeah. I saw him. It was good.
But yeah. Good system. I have had many bad Powered by the Apocalypse games though.
Well, there's a lot of hacks out there that aren't great, and that's the problem. There's games that really break it down, but there's so many different hacks of it now, some of which really miss the mark. And as someone who spent the last 3 years designing a Powered by the Apocalypse game, like I've really thought about a lot of those mechanics and like the exact things, and like if you have moves that aren't triggered clearly and then are worded badly, so you're not sure exactly when they go into play, then it can get really mushy. And then if there's not like a good, most moves have like some sort of option listed. If there's not enough of that there, then it puts way too much on the GM to have to constantly be narrating and coming up with stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those systems that everybody has a version of and everybody has a take on it, and it's like some of them are incredible and doing really great groundbreaking things. Some of them are fine and have one really amazing thing about them, and then there's a lot that are just like mediocre, basically reskins of masks or something that just like don't go well and are like okay or fine. So, and that's the same sort of, that's my take too with like Forge in the Dark systems, like Blades in the Dark, like awesome for what it does. Like it does what it was meant to do so well.
Yeah.
And then Scum and Villainy works well in that vein too, because it's very similar. It's like Scum and Villainy, they're pulling off crimes and stuff. And then there's a bunch of other things that have tried to like use that system to like less effect because they didn't really look at the system and see, okay, what it's like looking at a car. Like I love cars. So it's like, okay, I got 67 Mustang. Okay, I'm going to pull this trailer with it. I'm sorry, you're what? Like, that's not what that's... I mean, you can.
Yeah.
But why would you do that?
I feel like both like Blades in the Dark System and Powered by Apocalypse, it's really hard to do, and correct me if you've ever done it, but it's very hard to do like a long running campaign on both of those systems.
Yeah.
Like after like 4 sessions, you're like, cool, you're like gods now in this game. Yeah.
And they're designed that way.
Yeah, which is totally fine. But it kind of like the conversation, like you're not hooking up an RV to your Mustang. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about those systems. It's like those are great from one shots or like a home game like here and there or a stream game here and there. But it's never like, okay, we're gonna play 10 sessions of this game, and you're just like, we are?
Yeah.
Are we though?
Yeah.
Are we though?
Yeah.
Well, and that's a design choice by a lot of them. Stone Top, which is one that is in development. Unfortunately, the designer ran into some health problems, so it slowed down development. And the one I'm making, Starscape, we're like really like purposefully looking at that piece, and like leveling up is a lot slower in Starscape, and there's a lot of other things that you can do in it because I wanted that long form play, because it's about the drama between like crew members on a ship, like long form, like Firefly or Star Trek or Farscape or whatever it is. So like the longer that goes, like the more meat there is and more history between those characters to like play off of. So having like a quick like mask session where it's made to burn hot and bright because you're teenagers, you know, I didn't want that. So like slowing it down, requiring more XP before you get to pick an advancement, things like that, where it just like cools that a little bit and draws it out, is something that a lot of PBTA games haven't spent time thinking about. A lot of hacks, either because they wanted something that was shorter form or because they just copied what they'd seen before and been like, okay, this is, you get 5 XP, and you know, and then you get to pick an advancement. Oh, we'll have the exact same number of advancements as masks or whatever it is, because it seems like mask is the one everybody copies. But so that sort of thing. And I feel like that's what happens, is there's a kind of a copy paste that happens with any kind of newer system like Forged in the Dark or Powered by the Apocalypse, when it's like the new hotness. Belonging, Outside Belonging had a bunch of them for a while, or the No Dice, No Masters is the other thing they call. And people kind of like copy paste and then just like reskin it with what they want to do. And it doesn't always translate well. It doesn't always capture the vibe well, because you have to spend a lot of time like with real intentional design choices. Like, is this capturing it? And playtesting the fuck out of it like 800 million times until you are so sick of running that game you don't want to run it anymore. But you're like, okay. Oh no, that vibe was almost right. Okay, let's tweak these things and let's see if it clicks. But yeah, sorry, this is the thing.
I totally want to play Starscape
about a lot.
though.
Thanks.
Just getting up here is always an issue.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
Did you just apologize by talking about games? Isn't that what we're here for?
I know, but talking about designing games specifically, like Powered by the Apocalypse types of games, is like a thing that I'm like ruminating on a lot.
Sure.
Like I just released like 4.0 of the beta of my game. Go get it. It's on goldenhustlegames.itch.io for pay what you will right now. And so it's like I finished the feedback form, and I'm like trying to like process the feedback I'm getting from it and all these things. So it's like on my mind a lot. So I felt like I just went down like a bit of a rabbit hole there.
No, I'm loving hearing it, because I'm working on my, well, let me rephrase it. I have worked on many systems. I have never gotten to the point of making a system where I'm like, I want other people to see this. And so I am at the point of the first system I am working on that I want people to see. We're about to start doing the base system. Like, does this even make sense? Like, or is this just a brainchild thing that like only makes sense to me? We're about to start that. So I find the conversation interesting, right? Because it's like, okay, like hearing from other developers, 'cause you don't hear a lot from like system developers, right? And I always find that very interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of people have they don't have a sense of how things are going to land in a game. So I find it very difficult sometimes to deal with other people's homebrew.
Well, yeah.
You're great.
I mean, I'm not homebrewing any systems you know well enough to be like, oh, is that a homebrew?
No, but I know you're really fucking smart, so.
Oh. I also playtest shit. Like I feel like that's the biggest thing with like indie games. And I get a lot of people don't have the opportunities. But I just go to fucking every con I can, and I run it for a bunch of strangers as often as I can, because that's where you're going to get the best feedback. I run it for friends too.
Yeah.
And as much as I love you all, you don't give as good a feedback as a bunch of strangers. And like just seeing someone stare blankly at your character sheet and be like, I don't know what this means. Then you're like, I'm going to make a note of that.
Well, I'm interested because one of the things that I am adamant about with this playtest is I'm going to playtest it with a bunch of people that I want to be GMs for it, so that I can run it and go, okay, these are some things that I'm missing, and then the plan is to hand the game over to them for them to run their own groups. Because my problem with playtesting a game is that, one, I know the system, how I want it to be in my head. So if they have a question, I can just answer it, or I can just like move around it. But if a GM that doesn't, that gets the quick guide, right, and I hand them, this is the base rules, and they go, hey, you're missing, like, my players asked this, and I go, oh, I didn't put that in here. And that's really important to me, is like, that's like, I'm doing 2 rounds of playtesting. One where I'm GMing, and then I'm updating the quick guide, and then I'm handing it over to, I think, 4 GMs to run their groups individually, just a single session, and then just getting a feedback. And that's just the base, because it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not a hack of a system. It's its own dice system.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to make sure that, like, the 2 things I'm trying to make sure is, 1, is it fun? And 2, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Right? It's not like convoluted. It's not like 5,000 rules just to make 1 dice roll, right?
Yeah.
The idea is, like, I want it to be simple and easy. If you go this and this, great. Okay, that's what I'm doing in this situation. But then also, is that fun, or is that just boring, you know? So I find it interesting. I can't see.
Well, and it's so hard too, because I mean, like, we're wild perfectionists. So it's like, after 3 years of playtesting my game, I'm just now getting to the point where I'm starting to build that quick start and going to hand it off to other GMs. And it's one of those things where, at first, I know I'm going to get feedback that is about the quick start that I give them. It's like, oh, this wasn't in this. Oh, okay, this is how you get, like, so there's like a whole round of feedback that will be just me perfecting those like canned adventures that I'm passing out to people.
Sure.
And not any actual feedback on the system at all. And then, like, okay, so it's so interesting, and like the scientific pieces behind gathering accurate feedback. And like, you know, people don't like answering questions, so it's like, okay, put it on a scale of 1 to 6. That way they can't pick the middle one, because they'll always fucking pick the middle one. And if there's not a middle one, they'll either have to be a little bit good or a little bit bad. And it's just like all those things that actually make my master's degree come in handy. Master's degree in education. There you go. I know how to ask questions really well. But yeah, so yeah, it's always fun and wild. All right, we really do need to read emails.
Yes, sure.
We've been talking for like an hour.
I'm like, no.
All right, mailbag number 1. Usually I'm like, I don't want to read the first one because I've been the only person talking, but I feel like we've all been talking.
Oh no,
no.
A group that's willing to talk with each
Talking
other?
on a podcast? What? Does anyone want to read the first one? I can do it if you
It
want.
feels long.
I mean, I could do it.
Oh, you sweet summer child.
Yeah.
Oh, it's your
No, no.
first time on the show.
Remember what I said about not reading?
No, absolutely. No problem. And if you don't want to read, that's totally okay. And you
Oh,
can
yeah,
cover
yeah,
it.
Yeah. This is what I went to school for.
Is reading out loud?
Radio broadcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
I took oral interpretation of children's literature, which is reading things out loud.
Technical theater, lighting,
Yeah,
and
there you go.
lighting and sound. So.
Nice. All right, I'll do the first one.
All right.
All right, mailbag number 1. Hello, Happy Jacks. I had the same thing happen twice when I was asked for feedback about a game in a very different context, and I thought it might make for an interesting discussion. What makes an RPG session feel like a non-linear story? Years ago, after our first session of Trail of Cthulhu, the gumshoe version of 1930s investigators against Cthulhu mythos, one of my players said that he felt the scenario was very linear. They went from A to B to C in an obvious way. I found that interesting because I had a collection of places for them to go and things that to do that could have played out very differently if they had made different choices. But from their perspective, it was a very linear story. This year, after I ran a game for Big Bad Con, woohoo! I followed up with the players for feedback and got the same answer. The scenario felt linear. It was fun and a con scenario, so some linearity was to be expected. Linearity, that's good.
Yep.
That's good. This game, I completely made up in response to the players' decisions and actions. I had a couple scenes for inspiration, but ended up using only 3 of them, and the rest were improvised on the spot. So what makes a scenario feel linear, and what makes it feel non-linear? Should we avoid linear scenarios? And at what point is a scenario too linear? And to be clear, I'm not talking about railroad scenarios where player choices don't matter. It was great to meet, however briefly, Kurt, Mo, Davi, Kadeo, Jason, Kimmy at Big Bad Con. Thank you for years of entertainment and for many more years to come. Toby on the Discord.
Good question, Toby.
Thank you.
That was very radio of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got the voice.
Well, congratulations. If it's linear, you're running an adventure.
Yeah.
Adventures are, by definition, linear storytelling.
Yeah, I don't know if that's bad.
I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think maybe what they're honing in on is the obvious choices worked.
Predictability.
Yeah. Yeah, look for the note behind the note, as they say in the screenwriting industry.
In the biz.
In the biz. Yeah, I mean, throw in some more twists with anything that might be anywhere they might go. Throw in a little twist, I guess. That's it. Moving on.
I will give what I feel is a very obvious answer, which is allow for there to be dead ends, right? So, like, if you are playing off of what they're doing, be like, we're talking about Cthulhu and we're talking about Gumshoe. It's like, oh, well, 1930, you're like, oh, well, there's a speakeasy over here, and then there's also this thing that's over here. Well, you in your head, we were talking earlier where I said, the dragon's always behind door A, but they decide to go to door B. I only do that in games where I'm like, okay, we have to hurry this up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes if I know the dragon's in A and they go to B, it's just a dead end. They go there, they have something that happens, but inevitably
It's a cave-in.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they go to the tavern when they thought that they were going to get information, but it's really the laundromat that I was trying to get them to go to, and they go to that place and they find nothing. They're like, allow them to investigate. Maybe they get a clue, but it's, oh man, we should have gone to the laundromat. That was the right choice. That to me allows it to be a little bit less linear. It's also dependent on your time restraints, right?
Yeah, like for a con game, oh man, that's got.
That's your goal, is to be linear.
Yeah.
Give them the obvious answers so they can roll dice and play the game. Like dead ends aren't necessarily fun when they take away from your gameplay, but if you're at home and you're playing a long running campaign, sometimes dead ends are great, and that's what allows you to have a non-linear storytelling aspect. Versus a con, I don't think you should feel bad. I mean, they didn't say they felt bad, but I would say, like, at a con, good.
Yeah.
Don't, if I'm going to a game and I'm playing and I only have like 2 or 3 hours to play a game at a con, I want to hit my goal. I want to kill the dragon. I want to kill the Cthulhu. I want to defeat the thing, right? If I'm playing and we keep having, dead ends or we can't figure out the puzzle, that's gonna make me sad.
I think. Well, for me, the note behind the note is nothing felt surprising. Nothing felt like I was caught off guard or interested. So I think there's a difference between a linear story, which is something you absolutely want. Even if you're making it up on the spot, you still want things to feel linear. Like they make sense. And I think having things not feel surprising, though, feeling predictable, then that becomes boring. I mean, that's boring. So I'm not saying your game is boring, but reading from what you wrote, it feels like that might be something you're suspecting that they felt. I'm just assuming, sorry. I would say in that case, even in con games, the big trick is to pull in things from the character stories. Like whatever they make, whether even if you have pre-gens, they should be doing some sort of like customization or adding a backstory or a little bit of something there. So like, in your story, make sure you're pulling those elements in, because those are the things that they know you couldn't plan for because they came up with them. And that's what makes it feel like customized for them. And it's like their name on the shirt, or whatever it is. Like, okay, it's my bathrobe, but it's got my name on it. like whatever it is. I always do metaphors. You did great with the pizza metaphor, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah,
You like
that's
took that and ran. It was awesome. But I think that's really, really important. And even if you're doing a bunch of pre-planning for a con game, which is the majority of what I run, you can have like, okay, this is going to be a PC that is going to be somebody's family member. It's, you know, somebody that they've trusted. So you can skin these like nebulous trusted PC with somebody from someone's backstory. Even if you're more of a planner GM than I am, you can do that really easily, and it makes it feel very custom to them. And they feel like, oh, okay, wow, this is like happening right now. This hasn't been something this is not a con game that's been run 800 times, even if you haven't run it 800 times. And because it's like, this is a detail that I came up with 20 minutes ago, and it's mattering in this game.
Yeah, one of the other things I was going to say, give information, not options. You know, where, so don't say like, you might want to go to the laundromat.
Yeah.
You just, and I mean, you may do this already, and now I'm struggling to find like a good way to illustrate this of like, you know, don't.
Like you walk in and there's 2 doors. What do you do?
Sure.
Instead of being like, do you go to the door on the left? I don't know. I'm trying to help you because you
Maybe if we go off of the laundromat and the speakeasy, you know, you'd be like, you can talk about, you know, them finding the clothes that has the laundromat's tag inside of it.
Yeah.
You're giving them information, but you say it's stained with an alcohol.
Yeah, it's stained with beer, but it also has this. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
because then you're giving them the information of like, oh, like you're not saying so you can go check the laundromat or the speakeasy. You give them the information that there was alcohol and that there's a tag for a dry cleaner.
And then they get to argue amongst themselves, which
Yeah.
is the best because I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's actually a really great example of information, not options. That is a really good way of saying that. To kind of bring it into math, it's also like solving for x, right? Like they get 2 and they get 3, but they don't know what x is, right? And so they have to solve, you know, 2 plus x equals 3, and giving that information, you're giving the information, you're not giving them the options.
I love that metaphor so much. I'm feeling that forever.
And then they can go to the speakeasy and find out it's a dead end.
Yeah.
Something that we talked about before.
Well, and you can fill in so
And then
much
go to
stuff
the
there.
laundromat.
Like it's like, okay, 2 plus, you know, blank equals 7.
Yeah.
And or you know, and they could do 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. They could do like whatever they want to
1
do.
plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Yeah, yeah.
1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1.
Exactly.
Just watch that movie.
So it's like
So good.
they're all going to start here. They're all going to get there. And whatever they do in between is their choice.
Yeah.
And like every group is going to think about it differently. And as someone who teaches Common Core math, I really love the options. It's so cool. Like
And
all the
then-
different ways of doing it.
And then they're going to come up with some weird way and some crazy lie that they feel like they have to.
Yeah. They're going to draw
perpetrate.
pictures.
Yeah,
Like,
and
yeah.
that they have to like, oh, well, let's go into the laundromat, but I'm going to say that I'm from the Himalayas. And you're like, why?
Yeah.
Why not go in and go, hey, we found this shirt? You know?
Yeah.
My group recently went to this place that they were like, they got a message saying like, hey, meet this, you know, underworld guy here. And they went in there like all in disguise and everything. And there's like this old dwarf couple running the thing. And they're like sitting around. They're like, I don't see him anywhere and everything. And then they do something. One of the guys found a secret path. And then suddenly the old dwarf couple like pulled out weapons and stuff. They're like, whoa, no. We're supposed to meet this guy. And they're like, oh, well, we've been waiting for you. Why didn't you say so?
Yeah, I have a player that we will come up with an entire story of like, we're gonna go and we're gonna do X, Y, Z, and we're gonna get there, and we come up with this plan, and then like they'll go, okay, great. I don't want to do any of that. So I'm like, we sat down for hours.
Oh, no.
Hours coming up with this plan. I'm like, what made you decide to make this change? And they were like, well, there was like that character that was wearing white. And so because they were wearing white, I decided that was a bad plan. I'm like,
That's why you just don't give them time to plan. Like,
I'm a player. I'm a player. We
Yeah.
came up with a plan together.
no.
And I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
We had a plan. You have left us. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to do anymore.
Love it. Yeah, but I think kind of like bringing it back, I think One, definitely, I love that you both pointed out the difference between a convention game and like a home game, because there is a definite difference.
Huge difference.
And I am a very improv GM. I don't plan almost anything ever, even for con games now. But you want that linear story, and sometimes you have to be a bit railroady, and
Sometimes you
especially
have to be like, okay, guys, if you want the adventure, this is the way.
yeah. Or okay, and the space pirates attack you right now. And that's just what's going to happen right now, because that's how that happens.
Yeah, when you've been playing for an hour and a half and you look down and realize that your time allotted is ending in 30 minutes and they have not even found the second clue, you're like, well, all right, Cthulhu shows up.
Time for a clue by 4, and here you go.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah. So again, like, I don't think linear is a bad thing. It's a great thing. If you are improving and you're making up these stories as you go and it feels pre-planned, that's an accomplishment. That's fucking awesome. Like, you're doing a great and incredible thing. You might just be doing it a little too well. It's like there's like those things where it's like it's the reason like close-up magic isn't impressive on like television. It's like when you're there in person, you know that you're seeing everything, and you know that like, oh, you're not really faking or getting away with anything. Or on
Like, I'm not even gonna blink.
yeah, and like on TV, it's like, well, they could fucking be hiding that it's like,
there was a cut.
yeah, a green screen. Who knows? Like there's something like you want to see a little bit of the human element there in your GMing. So if you were making it feel like a linear, like A to B to C, that's great, especially if you're making it up. Don't do it quite so well.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, let's do a bathroom break right now. I need to think a little bit, even if you know what you're going to do. And then like come back in a few moments and then be like, okay, all right, I know where we're going from here. And like,
And then look at what you would take your first instinct and then go like, this is how this would normally go down. And go, how can I subvert that? How can I how can I make that somehow the opposite or heart-wrenching or weird.
yeah. So, but yeah, good job. Good on you. I'm proud of you.
Well done, Toby.
I'm proud of you, like improv GM Padawan. I appreciate you. And it was great meeting you. Super cool. Yay, Big Bad Con. It was great to, like, Jake and I had also been, like, internet friends and, like, chatting on Discord for a super long time. And, like, oh, God, it was, like, night, and I was, like, sort of drunk. Like you do. And
I was sober, and I thought I saw you, and I was like, I don't want to be awkward and be like, hey, and then this random person be like, hey. And so I was like, hey, are you up on this area?
This Discord DM, like, hey, are you here? Is that you? Let's come hang out.
I was like literally 2 tables over.
Yeah. That was like 90% of Big Bad Con is like, is that I don't know. We're Twitter mutuals. We talk a lot. I don't know. Hey.
That's how I always feel at conventions, because I always feel weird about like going up to someone that I've interacted with only on a digital space. And I don't mean like a Zoom call or like on a stream, but like, oh, we've talked in Twitter DMs or we've talked in Discord or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I always feel weird walking up to them and be like, hey, it's me, Jake on Discord. What's up? And then they're like, hey, I don't want to talk to you. You know, like being in a digital format, especially text-based format, it's very different than being in person. And I just don't want people to be like, fuck, I didn't want to see you.
Yeah. Fuck, I didn't want to see you, but I invited you to my studio. Anyway. Yeah. Obviously it went well. Huh?
Are we ready for mailbag 2?
Mailbag 2.
Mailbag 2. I'll take this one.
Do it.
Unless you want.
No. You already volunteered.
Greetings, jackalls. I heed the clarion call for emails. My group rotates GMs after each campaign. After we finish Curse of Strahd, my turn will be soon. I've had a game lodged in my brain since I first read the book Nova Praxis. It's pretty much hard sci-fi with some hyper-tech for that magic feel. My plan is to run the pre-made intro adventure first, then afterwards start mixing in some mythos nonsense with old one-style aliens, cults, psychic powers, etc. I am afraid this could be felt as a bait and switch, but I want the players to be in the dark when they start encountering the weird. My 2 questions. First, how would you recommend setting this up? Could I be transparent with my plans at session 0 or let the players go in blind? Second, how do you all go about finding the balance when mixing genres? Keep doing your great works. Regards, Tanner, Fuzzy Boff on the Discord's obligatory PS.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the end.
Yeah.
No one has an answer though. So next
Nope.
email.
Next.
No.
All done.
Now, I have very strong feelings about this.
Oh, do you?
No.
Yeah, because once upon a time, we spent weeks coming up with characters. We made 3 characters each because there was going to be, a high chance of death for an Old West campaign. And we were all very much looking forward to it. And in the first one, I think I killed somebody for a bounty, and then they came back to life, and then there were werewolves and stuff, and I was so angry. That was totally the bait and switch. It's like we wanted a typical Old West campaign, and that's what it was sold to us as. And when suddenly it was like werewolves and zombies and vampires, it was like, well, this isn't what I wanted to play.
Yeah. Also, especially if you're like set. I've heard these horror stories of like, okay, this is the setting, and people build a character that makes sense for that setting, but then immediately session 1 remove them completely from that setting. It's like, well, my character was meant to be able to climb the mountains and be able to be in cold weather, and you put us in a desert, like,
Yeah.
and it's like none of my abilities are helpful or useful. I to me, I think that in session 1, I wouldn't give away the secrets, but I would definitely I want to introduce weird aspects as we go further in. Maybe you're not going to say what those weird aspects are,
Yeah.
but just say, this is what we're going to do. And I want to start introducing maybe culty or like, more magical things into the world that you will, as a player, have options to interact with.
Yeah, and you can give general vibe of the stuff that you want to do, and then say, are you comfortable with that, or would you like to know more? And if they're like, oh, no, surprise me, I'm cool, then you can stop there. But sometimes people might go, no, I need to know what's going to happen. And then you can just slowly give them more information.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like it's the thing that I keep going back to is the fact that I know I have built characters to work in a very specific way, or we're going back to, a player wanting to play a character that can squeeze into things, right? We're like, as a joke. But the thing is like, if I build a character and I have these abilities, I want to use them. Like I'm building this character to do these things. And if they somehow, the game that you're playing is not what you are expecting it to be, that kind of hurts the player in the sense that they don't get to show off what they want to show off with their character.
Yeah.
So while they may not necessarily, like the sci-fi aspect that they're talking about bringing into it, and like cults and stuff like that might not necessarily affect their player, but session 0 is there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like the things that you talk about in session 0 aren't necessarily supposed to be used in the game. Like they can be of like, oh, we're now brothers, or we're now related, or we've adventured, and so now we have this relationship. That can be used, but talking about like the general direction of the campaign, that should be something that as you play, you know the direction you're going towards, but not necessarily going, oh, well, because we know that we have to fight this thing that we don't know about. Like, that's the session 0 is supposed to be there for
And
a
you can
reason.
also be like, that's not going to be useful in this campaign. I'm just going to come out and say that.
Yeah.
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 You should do that. You should not, especially if you're like a point buy system or something like that. Oh, it's the worst if you're in a point buy system and you end up buying something and spending a bunch of points on something that ends up being completely irrelevant and not used. It's like the most frustrating thing. Now, Jason did this recently with Pinnacles, our Wild Talents AP. Like he had like a weird
Hey.
idea.
Which
Yeah.
usually plays on Sundays at
2-ish.
2-ish.
I love the well.
That's why I'm here, for schedules for everybody.
Oh, see, I'm running
I
a
only
game.
play in that game.
See, I'm the GM of a game that we're pre-recording right now, and every single episode, right when we start, I'm like, and this is what is the name of the show that I just
Yeah, I'm starting doing an advice show, and I keep going like, "Hi, I'm John Ingy, and this is Fuck, that's the Where's my logo?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just do everything live. So every single episode, or every single session of Unsung Tales is like, and this is session. Help somebody, and then someone would say it. I'm like, yeah, that's what we're playing. It's great, so good. We end up with lots of session, but Jason did this as your GM. Like he had this weird idea, which I honestly I'm not sure how. Like I'm way behind on listening, so I haven't finished the first session yet. But like he had this weird idea, which he gave to me. He pitched it to me, and I was like, okay, that sounds good, cool. Make sure everyone's okay with it. So like, how did he pitch it to you without like? Did he spoil the surprise? Did he tell you what the thing was? Or what? I think he did like what you suggested, where he's more like, okay, this is gonna be you're making characters for this. There's going to be a bigger premise. It's going to be a little wild and out there and a little strange. Are you up for it?
Yeah, it was like, this is going to be like Daredevil-y style, like street level.
Supers,
and then it's going to grow into something else. And I was like, yeah, I don't have to tell me anything else. That's cool. I'm on board for whatever.
Also, like, if you have some, like, hint about what's going to happen and allow your, especially in a point by system where like maybe they do spend a point or two in something that might be useful in the future.
Yeah.
It makes each of those players feel unique or like specially chosen to deal with this thing. It's like it wasn't by happenstance. They happen to have read books about this deity in the past, and this is what it was meant to be. You feel like the superhero. You feel like the chosen one.
Yeah, because we play these games for a bit of a power fantasy and to feel like the hero, or like the helpless, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a fan of like secrets at the table. I love when like everyone's like, oh, I'm feeling this right now towards this person, because like I feel like there's like a little bit of like, okay, everyone metagames a little bit, but I feel like you should trust the people at your table enough to like
good metagaming and bad metagaming.
Yeah.
And I think that's good metagaming.
Absolutely. And you should, if you're playing with people that you think are gonna take those like table secrets and like run with it and play in bad faith, then don't play with those fucking assholes.
Yeah.
Like just don't. Like why would you spend your time with them? Like I get some people live in like a place where they don't have a lot of options, but the internet happens and it exists now. Come play on game days on November 4th. But yeah, it's just so much more interesting when everyone's open about things. And as the GM, I've done things too where like I hint at things to come, and it's like, but you absolutely should get permission and buy-in before any of that. Like yeah, especially
and that's the key word.
Yeah,
buy-in.
Yes. So if your table is like ready for anything, like sure, get fucking weird at this shit. Like multiverse us, like cool, great, whatever. Like awesome, that's great. And then like they have that buy-in, they know what to expect. They're not gonna like get so focused on like their horse that they ride. I always come up with that example. I'm a horse person. I like horses. So it's like, okay, and then like, oh, now you're flying in a spaceship. You can't take a horse with you. Bye. And you're like, oh, but my pony.
Yeah, I kind of had that at my in-person game where it's barbarian who came from a place that is known for its horses. But I was, to be fair, I was like, okay, this is clearing a keep. You're going to be going inside a keep and clearing out all the monsters inside. And he brought a horse.
Yeah.
It's like, and then he was salty about it. So we just made fun of it. Yeah.
Isn't there?
Like, oh, well, no, the horse can stay in the dinghy and make sure it doesn't float away. He can row the boat. And it's like, oh, but we got to get back to the horse. He's like, the horse isn't here, okay?
Isn't there like a whole entire D&D subclass that is like all about having a mount? And it's like, cool, we're going to go dungeon diving. And you're like, yeah, the horse going to stay outside the dungeon.
Horses in D&D are in more danger than parents in D&D. Like, parents in a backstory.
Yeah. I will say I absolutely metagame as a player with other players. Mm-hmm. I will be in messages with other players. We'll be talking about like maybe things that our characters have done off screen, or you know what I mean? Of like, okay, hey, what would be really fun is if like we like if you're playing a fan, like what if we go fishing like in between session, like what if like our characters just like love going and just like spending and going fishing, and then that gets brought up in game, or like a big one is romance. It's like me and another player are like, we clear things with each other and we have that conversation of like, okay, what are acceptable like means of like, how do we want to go about this? What makes sense? Like, and those conversations are considered to be metagame. Those kinds of conversations are like really, really great. And I know that we just got really off topic.
No, it's great. No, I think it's important.
Yeah, but I got stuff to
And
say about this.
I think Rose like did a great clarification in there.
Absolutely.
Cooperative storytelling is different than metagaming.
Yes.
I think metagaming is like the negative connotation where they're like, oh, I know so and so has
Yeah.
this, so I'm
But
gonna
they're-
steal it from them at night and like run off and sell it. It's like, how would your character fucking know?
Yeah.
But like cooperative storytelling is a much
And I actually encourage my players to like set up a text thread without me.
Yeah.
And like I love to be like, and you burst open the door and you walk in and the dragon turns around and goes, and now you will be my kibble. And then like, and that's where we're cutting for the night. Now you did not prepare very well for this, so feel free to text thread it up. And then like the next time you play, and they're like, I'm gonna hold my action until so-and-so goes, and then I'm gonna do this. And then like, and they're all like super coordinated. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And they feel so cool doing it because they've planned it out beforehand. And let's get it straight. Your character is a much better rogue, wizard, fighter than you are because they're that person 24/7, and you just play it for funsies like once a week or once a month or every 6 months, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to clarify. I'm sorry. Drowning in Blood Tears, who is welcome new person watching your show for the first time, chatting for the first time, was the person who did the collaborative storytelling versus metagaming. I gave credit to Rose because Rose just happened to type it, and that's what I saw it. So, but thank you. Good job. Excellent. All right. Cool.
Well, there was a second question, a part of that question,
right.
Yeah.
which was how do you mix genres?
How do you go about finding the balance when mixing genres?
I don't.
I go with my gut. I screw it up and then I retcon.
Yeah. I honestly, I think that is such a difficult question to answer just purely because it's going to be different from every table.
Oh,
Yeah.
I never go above 35%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it also depends on what the genres you're mixing. Like, if you're going to mix Western and sci-fi, like, you have to think about what your players are familiar with and where they're going to jump. A bunch of people nowadays are going to jump to Westworld. Like, immediately, that's where a lot of people's brains are going to go.
Cowboys and Aliens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that
Terrible
gem. My God.
I worked on it. Anyways.
You did?
Nice.
I snuck into it at Comic-Con. My husband and I
I
were...
just skipped it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it at all.
Oh, yeah. I did. But yeah. Anyway, and I think that was the year we did a Happy Jacks meetup at Comic-Con, too, maybe. I think because I was drunk from that, and then it was like right next door to the Cowboys versus Aliens.
Why do I feel that all of your stories about cons, you're drunk?
Those that are telling. I mean, they're not
Welcome
all.
to Happy Jack.
Yeah, welcome to Happy Jacks. I mean, there's also a lot of like cosplay ones, but like talking about how much high heels hurt is a lot less fun. But
Can only imagine.
I mean, they do.
they
They
do.
hurt.
It's
They're
fun.
terrible.
I don't
Yeah.
have to imagine. I have.
yeah. But yeah, I think so. I think thinking about the genres that you're mixing and why. Like, because I think that motivation has a lot to do with it. If you're like, hey, it'd be really interesting to meld these two genres in a really interesting way, that's great. If you're like, I'm going to start them here, and then we're going to jump to this because it'll be really startling and like a shocking change, like maybe take a little second thought on that. Like, so really like figure out why you're doing it. What are you trying to capture by mixing those two things together? Like there were also, God, I can't remember. It was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon like a long time ago. It had horses in it, which is why I remember it. And it was like robot horses. And it was like these cowboys who had these robot horses. And I don't remember a lot about it, except that they were cool horses and they were robots. But like, if you're like doing some weird thing like that, like, okay, this is like some sort of like if you're twisting that or you have nostalgia and you actually remember what that show was, maybe you're making that. So I think the motivation and why you're doing it needs to be... Yellow Star! Trying to get blood checks are my favorites! Yeah! You're the new favorite. Good job.
No, I was gonna say Thundar the Barbarian, but I think they just had regular horses.
No, they just had they had regular horses, but they were cool horses. But
were cool
that's pretty much the only thing that got me to watch cartoons. If it had a horse, I was a fan.
Yeah.
Brave Star too, also Anyway, so like think about what it is you're trying to achieve with your mixing of these different flavors. Sometimes flavors are great together, sometimes they're not. So is it peanut butter and chocolate that you're mixing, or is it like cranberry
Pickles.
and pickles?
Pepper in your cake.
Yeah. So like think about it. Like why?
You're putting pepper in your cake.
Yeah. If you're doing it just to be shocking and different, like it's not a great motivation for it.
I feel like that could be said about anything that you do in your entire life.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not. Like,
Well, if you're doing it to be shocking, it's usually not a good reason to be doing it, right? Like if you're doing it because you want a change or want to escape whatever aspect of it, but to do something as a pure shock value, I think that's where like the difference is. Like, oh well, we're talking. I am aware of a game that a friend of mine used to be in where they were told, okay, you're going to be in this world. This is a city. Everything outside of the city is a poison gas, and everyone dies. And so they built the character very specific to be like, okay, cool. This is going to be street level. We're going to be just fighting in this city, and we're going to have to solve crime in this city. It's not going to be an adventurous, like we're going to take off. Session 1, it was like, cool, you're going outside the gates, and they were like, my character, what? Like,
yeah.
Maybe you could have told me we were going outside the gates.
Yeah, and I mean, another aspect of that is like I was a player in a game where, like, I want to say session 2, the GM had this idea in his head and he loved it. And once it was explained, it was a very interesting idea and I would have moved forward with it. But the way he went about it was that he killed everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was actually going to be reincarnated as these like other aspects so that like when people couldn't be there, it made sense story-wise. And,
Write a book.
but the thing is like he didn't tell any of us and explain any of that.
Yeah.
And so when I see that there's only one other person in my party that hasn't been downed and there's like 20 more bad guys, my character just bolted. I'm like, I don't want to die. Like, I want my character to survive. Maybe I can come back and get them or whatever. Like, I had no idea what the story was. And I was like, yeah, I don't like this. This is not fun to me.
No.
And then it was like, they explained it to me after the fact. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I just wish you would have.
Yeah, you should have told me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a birthday adventure that I ran a couple years ago. So my friend called me up. She's like, I'm putting on a birthday party, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, I just want to play D&D with my friends.
Yeah.
This is when I first moved out to Minnesota. And I was like, all right, make 3rd level characters. We're going to do this. And I have this adventure I like to run people through. And everybody got there and they had these like crazy characters. One was like, I'm a drow pirate captain. I'm like, you're in the middle of the most landlocked place in the world. Like that was my fault. I should have been like, so here's the conceit of the adventure.
Yeah.
Make an appropriate character.
Yeah.
I have a game that I really want to run where I am going to kill everybody at the first session, but I'm going to tell them ahead of time.
Yeah.
And it's a game called Shield Maidens, and by Mongoose Publishing. And I was going to do some sort of I backed the Kickstarter thinking it was something a little different than it was. I still love the system, but originally I thought they were like Valkyries. So they were going to be like, I was going to have them, I was going to do like an all-femi table and have them make characters for like battles throughout history. And then like, okay, and then they'd each like explain how they died. And then their real characters that they really make would be the Valkyries that they were then like afterwards, because they were like, whether they died in World War II as a nurse or whatever it was, like all these things. But that was like the one thing I was like, okay, I think I need them to be a character and then die and then play the game. But I don't know. I think, and obviously I would explain that to them ahead of time. It would be really shitty to be like, you're making these amazing warrior women and they all fucking die.
Yeah, that's
It would
not
rip my
okay.
heart out. No, that would be bad. Also, I have another, I have to correct something. It was not Lone Star. Brave Star was the name of the cartoon. I think Lone Star was one of the characters in it. And I was very excited because I was like, my brain recognizes that. I think that's right. But they have gone into IMDb. So GM Radio Rob came up with the actual name. Don't worry, Drowning in Blood Tears are still my favorite.
Yes.
Rob knows why. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, Rob knows what
Rob
he
knows
did.
why. All right. Mailbag number 3. I can read again, or
Well, hold on. I actually, hold on.
Okay.
You were talking about Shield Maiden, and it made me think of Emberfall. Have you ever played Emberfall?
no.
So Emberfall is kind of what you've described.
Okay.
Which is basically you are these not deities, but you're these characters, and each time you die, which the point of the game is that you do die, and that's how you level up.
Oh.
And depending on how you died determines what your options for leveling. So you choose your base class, like, oh, I'm a shield person, oh, I'm a damage person. Now, if you die sacrificing yourself to save someone else, you level up and you get the options of, oh, well, you had a self-sacrificing option, so, or that's how you died. Here are your options for your next level, and it's a different class that you add on to it. But the thing is that you can only die like 12 times, I think, before you're like dead, and like that's the end of the game. So there is like it isn't like okay, I'm just gonna jump off a cliff, right? But it's very similar to that, and I think that would actually like lend itself very well to like a Valkyrie storyline of through history. Each of them dying at the end of a session and moving on to the next war, the next thing that they have to do. Just made me think of that.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I wrote that down. I'll definitely look at that. Because, yeah, I really am excited about the Shield Maiden system that Mongoose came out with. But it has very set lore, and they're very much like living Shield Maidens. And that's part of it. It's speaking of like mixing, it's like high-tech Shield Maidens. Like they're in like Ragnarok has happened in the future. So they've got like these like really cool cybernetic. It's very like cyberpunk, like it's like cyber Viking. It's very cool. And like it's made like you can be anyone, but it's made for women Shield Maiden characters, which is fucking cool. And yeah, it's a very cool setting, but it didn't lend itself to like with that first idea. I'm definitely gonna run it at some point because I backed it like so fast.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, please, yes, all the monies.
Yeah.
There you go.
My fantasy world, hjrpg.com, is what we're terming musket punk. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's a little bit clockwork, but and it's basically like musketeer pirates stuff. And when I run it, I keep all of that stuff. I have like a couple little clockwork things here and there. Mostly it's historical fantasy. And then my buddy Brian, who's writing the book with me, when he ran us through a clockwork dungeon, and that's like way too much for me, but it's just enough for him, and it was super fun, so I don't care.
Yeah. That's awesome. But I can read the next one.
All right.
Hello, Happy Jack Advice Show. This isn't an email seeking advice, but one of success. I'm a Discord community member who's been trying to be active lately. I have just gotten through a rough couple of years emotionally. I'm sorry to hear that. And since I've always found comfort in journeys your character go through on your actual plays, I thought I would try dipping my toe back into the gaming community by gaming with the community I'd been lurking in for years. That's always good. Like, I love lurkers. We've got a ton of people on the Discord. We've got like a handful of actually active people. But I love seeing people that have been in the Discord for like years and like pop in and be like, hey, so I saw this thing and I wanted to talk about. I'm like, welcome. This is your first message. You've been here for 3 years.
There's some charm about that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I totally relate to that.
Where did I leave off?
I started talking.
Yep. I started talking in the Happy Jacks Discord and got involved with a couple of game days and JackerCon. I'm gonna want. I want terminology explanations after this. This has helped me incredibly by relearning how to talk to people outside of my work context. Playing in the community has also helped me enjoy different systems and role-playing systems. I want to thank everyone I've played with so far, but I didn't take good enough notes, nor do I want to make you read all the names. To close, I want to thank Happy Jack RPG for playing games and fostering an acceptable community I'm getting to know. I want to thank the Discord community for gathering and being a great group of people. Most of all, I want to invite people to fence?
People on the fence.
Oh, people on the fence. I skip words.
Yep, me too.
Most of all, I want to invite people on the fence about joining in to do so. Join the Discord and play in a game days and have a freaking adventure. Wow, come on, Jake. A freaking adventure for a few hours. Missed pronouns like the 93 games. Pronounced like the 93 game.
I loved Myst. I spent so long on all those games. So many hours.
I could not. My puzzle solving skills at that age
Yeah.
were just non-existent.
No,
I was like,
don't
what do you
wanna-
get to kill in this game?
Yeah.
I have to solve puzzles? No.
Don't fucking tell me how old you were then. Okay. All right.
I do not know.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you've enjoyed it. So, game days is because we think we're funny. Instead of spelling it like DAYS, we spell it.
Well, so I
DAZE.
caught on to that one. So I caught it wasn't the game days, it was the other
JackerCon.
JackerCon. That was the one that I wanted. Because game days I caught because you were talking about in the
earlier.
Yeah.
The intro. So JackerCon is our once a year online convention.
Okay.
So for like 3 to 5 days, depending on what time zone you're in, people run like a shit ton of games. We had, I think it was like 15 games the last one, like
Nice.
back to back. People just run them from all over. It's really fun, but super wild, like array of games too. So usually happens like late summer.
And it's community run, as James says.
Yeah. We don't have anything to. I sometimes run, but like the people got together and started running it years ago, and it's just happened every year ever since. It took a little bit of a dip during COVID, like everything else, but yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I hear like people were going through stuff during that time. You know?
What? Weird, yeah. Yeah. So, but we're blessed with a super incredible like community that does a bunch of shit on their own that they don't need. They know better than to rely on us for doing things. So they've grown up like they're like the Gen X of like fan and community groups. It's like, okay, like they have the keys.
It's like, I got the key.
Yeah.
I'll let myself in and make myself dinner. It's fine.
Exactly. That's very much their vibe, and we love them so much for it. And like, as long as they're home by the time the lights turn on, they were fine. Yeah, everything's good.
That's great.
Mama drinks a little bit too much wine sometimes, and it's okay. I love you anyway. Awesome. All right. Are we spent? Are we done?
I think that might be it.
Okay. Wow, 2 hours. It's been a while since we did it's almost 2 hour episode.
I will tell you I can talk for hours.
You're gonna have to come back. They
Yeah.
love it. They love it when we like pontificate
I know we
for
just
long
went.
periods of
We
time.
went down holes that were wonderful and
So good.
like just like Alice.
Well, it was great because it was like I even called it out. I was like, I don't know how we got here, but we were way off topic.
But it was good.
Yeah. It
And
wasn't.
then I was like, and we're gonna continue to be off topic. I got shit to say.
Honestly, they'd be super disappointed. They really dislike it when we stay on topic.
Yeah, they don't like railroads.
They're not
you know.
no.
They don't like a linear
This is a
storytelling.
sandbox.
Yeah. And they're not used to it. They're like, why is Mama staying on topic? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, all right. Thank you for joining us for season 32, episode 22 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. Please support our amazing indie designer of the month, Monroe Wells Soto. They at monroe.itch.io. This one every time. Monroe.
Row your boat.
Thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. You can join their amazing ranks at happyjacks.org/Patreon. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Ingy,
And I'm Jake.
And
and I
today,
almost forgot again.
and today we're going to leave you with a song called Laser Printed Hero. It's by a group called the Mary Sues. And someone cool is playing guitar in it.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Are you really?
Yeah, no, yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks, yeah. All right, and I'll see you all next week.
She looks upon the landscape of this ancient battlefield. She looks upon the horrors that curiosity revealed. That endless goblin army, full of avarice and vice. She gently combs her battle steed as she reaches for her dice. And she's a laser-printed hero, a figure cast in lead. And if you miss a dice roll, she may just end up dead. Don't forget about her backstory for family and foe. And if this is her last stand, well, She spurs her great horse forward as she waves amongst the horde. She leaves a trail of corpses with her trusty +3 sword. And she's a laser perfect hero, no prisoners shall she take, 'cause she's deep into her battle range for a role you didn't make. Her companions keep their distance, so they're not mistook for foes. And if she kills the healer, well, that's just how the story goes. And now the battle's over, her companions give a toast unto the mighty hero that turned that goblin host. She looks around the tavern and she mutters